The renowned psychologist William James claimed that the correspondence between brain damage and bodily function could also be explained if the brain were merely transmitting and not producing consciousness. He illustrated this with the example of the way a prism transmits light. When a prism is damaged, the light passed through it may get distorted. Similarly, when the brain gets damaged, the consciousness passed through it may get impeded.
The brain is a receiver of consciousness, and it is manipulated by what consciousness wants it to do. So it's a two-way street. If you damage the brain, your awareness of the world is quite different because consciousness will not operate through it in the usual way.
If you modify, for instance, a component, an electronic component within your TV set, of course you will alter the reception of the information, for instance, the images, the sound, and so on and so forth, but that does not affect at all the program itself or the TV station that is sending the electromagnetic waves to the air, you see? So it's a bit the same kind of analogy that we can use with regard to the relationship between what we call mind and brain.
I would say that so far every experience that people have is correlated with brain activity. That doesn't mean that the brain is causing it. It may be that the brain is reflecting what's going on. So the causal direction on experience we don't understand very well.
This idea of an extracerebral source of consciousness gains support from another astonishing finding: the ability of some people to do normal conscious activities despite having little or no brain. In the 1980s, British neurologist Dr. John Lorber published his groundbreaking study relating to hydranencephaly, where the subjects experienced normal consciousness while having little or no brain matter.
Very interesting examples of hydranencephaly, where the cerebral hemispheres, the cortex, is not there, it's absent. And the hemispheres are replaced by sacs filled with what we call cerebrospinal fluid. And in such cases, according to mainstream neuroscience, the people suffering from this form of disorder should not be intelligent at all, should not be able to function cognitively. Yet there's a neurologist called John Lorber at the University of Sheffield in the UK. During the 70s and the 80s, he scanned hundreds of those patients, and many of those patients were intellectually very strong. In one of the cases, one of the patients had an IQ of 126. He received a PhD in mathematics.
A contemporary practice reinforcing Lorber's findings is the surgical procedure hemispherectomy. This rare form of surgery, where half the brain is removed, has been performed hundreds of times over the last century to treat disorders uncontrollable in any other way. Unbelievably, the surgery has no apparent effect on personality or memory. If memories are stored in the brain, how could removing half the brain leave the memories unaffected?
Hemispherectomy is the ablation or the non-appearance of one hemisphere of the brain, which is one half of the brain, which contains the cerebral cortex. And the cerebral cortex is associated with all sorts of cognitive and emotional functions. So if, for example, during childhood, a child has one of his cerebral hemispheres removed, the other half of the brain will take charge, and there will be a total reorganization of the neural connections in the brain and also the nerve cells. And the child will be able to function very often normally from an intellectual point of view.
There's always changes in brain function, always. There's written down a case in my book of a girl of 3 years old who had one part of the brain was taken out because of intreatable epilepsy. And within 1 year, she could speak 2 languages, could play, could talk, could everything. So the one hemisphere took over the function of the 2. And under the age of 4, the brain is extremely plastic.
For a long time, surgeons have been removing small diseased parts of the brain without causing any significant impairment of memory. The materialist explanation for this post-surgical continuity of memory is that there may be redundancy in the storage capacity of the brain. That is, the same memories may be stored in multiple places. So the theory goes, even if some part of the brain is lost, the memories can be retrieved from its other storage locations. However, the idea that a full 50% of the brain is redundant, as hemispherectomy would imply, stretches credulity. And some of the subjects reported by Lorber had normal memories, despite having less than 5% of the normal brain substance. To account for this, material neuroscientists would have to claim that 95% of the brain is redundant.